Welcome to the topic video on CSS Cascade and Inheritance. In this video, we're going to learn what the C in Cascade means and how it's important for our styling and when we create GUIs, graphical user interfaces. The readings, some good readings here. I like this one in particular. The most important CSS concept to learn. It includes a comic, some humor, and the MDN reference on Cascade and Inheritance. Okay. We didn't really talk about what happens when multiple CSS rules have selectors that match the same elements. Okay. You can see how that could happen. You could have selectors that select P's, that select classes, etc., etc. In such cases, which CSS rule is finally applied is controlled by a mechanism known as the cascade. Okay, so we have multiple selectors that apply to an element. To understand the importance of which one rule wins out, there are three pieces. Importance, let's see what that means. Specificity, how specific the selector is. And a third one, source order, meaning the order in the CSS file, not the order in which different properties or classes are attached to an element, but the order of the CSS code in the source file. Importance. There's a special piece of syntax that you can use to make certain declarations always win over all the others, and is exclamation mark importance. I haven't had to use this much in my web career. I do notice it in some of the CSS frameworks I use, but I actually haven't had to use it much myself. Okay, so here's our importance example. Okay, but before we go through this example, let's bring out one more issue. Okay, so that's importance. We're going to have two paragraphs, so let's copy that over. Okay, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to just drop these into, here's two paragraphs. I'm dropping them into a markdown document. This is a temporary markdown document, test.md. Remember, we can put HTML straight into markdown. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the CSS. Okay. What do I need to do to put the CSS in here? Well, I need to put it in style sheets. Style. I'll just drop this stuff in right here. Then I gotta end the style. Slash style. Okay. So now we see we've got, this is a paragraph. This is one selector to rule them all. Okay, what do we have going on here? Where is my important? Oh, so I have, let's look at each one of these rules. Okay. First of all, what is this? This is an ID selector. It goes with a paragraph with the ID winning. Oh, the second paragraph has the ID winning. Okay, good. Okay, so that's going to apply. Background color red. Border one. I don't see a border. Let's make the border bigger. I still don't see a border. Strange. Better. What is this? It's a class selector. Do we have classes? Oh, both paragraphs get classes. Okay, they say background color gray. Border none, and it gets tagged important. Border none. Both these classes, both these paragraphs have the class better. The border property gets tagged with exclamation mark important. What did we just say the rule was? Importance rules them all. Okay? Important, anything more, a declaration marked as important always wins over all others. Okay? So let's look at it once again. Here, we've got the paragraph. Both paragraphs have the class better. One has the ID winning. We've got it. Winning specifies a border. Okay. Better specifies a border. So both these rules, their borders rules apply to both these paragraphs. However, this one is tagged with importance. So this overrides. Okay. Really, Professor? How do you know that? Let's turn it off. I commented out the rule and look what happened. This paragraph with the ID winning got a 4-pixel solid black border. Professor, why didn't the other one? Let's go look at more about specificity. Okay, but we saw, first of all, important rules them all. So let's uncomment that out. We get one select, and we get rid of all the borders because better applies to both paragraphs. Okay. Specificity. Specificity is basically a measure of how specific a selector is. How many elements it could match in a sense. Okay. Elements, how specific are these? Element selectors have low specificity. Class selectors have higher specificity. ID selectors have even higher specificity. Okay, because you can only have one thing on a web page with a given ID, so you're going to match just that thing. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Class selectors, we give classes to things. It makes sense that that would have higher specificity than just a tag or element selector. Now, there's a computational rules that cover for specificity. Okay, look up the references. I don't remember the rules. I only use the previous mentioned 3 things. And let's see how this helps us. Okay, elements have low specificity. Class selector have higher specificity. ID have the highest. Okay, so here we have a tag selector, an element selector for paragraphs. It says background color blue. Now this has a background color of gray. This has a background color of red. Why is that? Okay, this background color blue for the tag selector is overridden by, winning has a background color of red. What did we say? ID selectors have higher priority. This last paragraph has an ID on it, so it gets the red background color. Class selectors have a higher priority than tag selectors. So the class selector with better gives this background color gray. Now if I take off that background color from the class selector, look what happens. Okay, the background color blue that's given by the tag selector comes through. Okay, because there's nothing else. Okay, this takes precedence over no background color because we specified one. If we put that property back, we can see it goes back to gray as given by this class selector. Okay, so in this example we saw it stems. It shows importance. It shows class selectors relative to ID selectors winning out over class selectors winning out over paragraph selectors, and important properties marked as important win out in general. Okay, but I just remember those 3 rules. Okay, ID on top, class, tag, and importance. However, there's one more important rule. If multiple competing selectors have the same importance and specificity, a third factor that comes into play to help decide which rule wins out is source order. That means the order in which they appear in the CSS. Okay? So here's my source order example. Okay? I have a section. I actually have two sections here. One has a heading called Getting It Right. The other has a heading Getting It Wrong. Okay? I added a couple buttons because this is the kind of thing we do where we're not using CSS alone, we're using CSS plus JavaScript. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate that. But what do we have going on here? Right now, this paragraph here called right has the class hidden1. Okay, right down here, the paragraph with ID wrong has class hidden2. Okay, professor. So what's the CSS? The CSS, hidden1 is a class. Display none. Showing1, display block. Now I give you a different order. I say different order, showing2, display block, hidden2, display none. So here's the question. What happens if I apply both hidden1 and showing2 classes to an element? Hidden1, okay, I'm going to apply two classes, hidden1 and showing1 to an element. If both these classes are applied to an element, okay, why would you do that? We're going to show you why we would do that in a second. Why would you do that, professor? We're going to show you, okay? But what will happen? This class is on the element, and this class is on the element. Equal specificity, source order then matters. The last rule to be encountered takes precedence. So if we have hidden and showing, the display is going to be set to block. So something will show up here. What's the next question? The next question asks, what about hidden2 and showing2 classes to an element? Okay, showing2 and hidden2, if they're both applied, they both have the same precedent. Source order indicates that showing2 and hidden2 applied at the same time will result in display none. Okay, professor. So, you got something to show us? Okay. Let's add a little bit of JavaScript. Okay. We're going to have a toggle button, or a button that's going to do one thing. That each button is going to toggle a class. Okay. So here's some JavaScript code. I get the button, I go get element ID toggle 1, get element by ID toggle 2, I get the right paragraph and I get the wrong paragraph, put into element P1 and P2, so we're using our DOM. Now I'm going to add an event listener to my button. Add event listener, we're going to listen for the click. With each click, I'm going to call paragraph 1's, each click on button 1 or toggle 1. I'm going to call P1's class list and ask it to toggle showing 1. It'll add or remove the class. I'm going to do the same thing, okay, with button 2, with paragraph 2. I'm going to toggle the class list showing 2. Okay, so I'm going to do basically the same thing. And each of those rules look the same. What rules, professor? Hidden1 says display none. Hidden 2 says display none. Showing 1 says display block. Showing 2 says display block. Now, if I come over here and click this toggle button, oh, the stuff I had disappeared. Now the stuff appears. The stuff disappears. So this paragraph is appearing and disappearing. If I click the second button, Professor, I think you messed up on your code. Your toggle button's not working. Let's see if that's true. What's going on here? What is this toggly thing doing? Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so we're looking at the first paragraph. Okay, we're in the first section. I put a little border around the sections. Okay, and in this first section, we see that this paragraph with ID right starts with the class hidden. When I click the toggle button, oh, it adds the showing one class. When I click the toggle button, again, the showing class is removed. So it's just adding and removing the showing one class. Okay, and because of source order, we saw that if we have both classes added, hidden one and showing one, the showing one takes precedence. Now, you must have hooked up your button wrong, Professor, for the second example. Did I or did I not? Does anything happen when I click toggle? No, nothing. Wait a second, look over to the right. Look over here. It's showing me hidden. I click toggle again. It's adding showing 2. It's doing this button is doing the exact similar thing to what the above button was doing, adding and removing the showing class. What's going wrong? What's going wrong with the source order? Okay. Could I fix this? Yes. I could change the source order, or I could choose to toggle the hidden 2 class rather than toggling the showing 2 class. So this is a case where our JavaScript, along with our CSS, has to work together. And if we're doing something, if we don't understand our source ordering and what the different classes do, we can end up with something that doesn't do what we think it's doing. And the way we would see that is, we'd see a 1 if our toggle button's working, which it is. It's toggling that class for us. Then we come over and say, what's happening with their styles? We see, oh, if I have both showing 2 and hidden 2 both applied, because of source order, hidden 2 takes priority. However, if I have hidden 1 and showing 1 both applied, showing takes priority. So by toggling showing 1, that works fine. Toggling showing 2 has no effect. Okay. Debugging. And getting, this is a common type of thing to do. Toggle. Okay. So it's using that nifty classless part of the DOM. Toggle a class. All right. Inheritance. Some property of values applied to an element will be inherited by that element's children, and some won't. Which properties are inherited by default and which aren't is somewhat down to common sense, if you can have common sense about graphics and CSS. Think about if you have the body or the HTML element, think about the font families that get applied to H1s, H2s, paragraphs, and such in those. Okay, those get inherited. Okay, things that typically don't get inherited are a lot of sizing things. Okay, so what I do is I look up things in the reference properties. Okay, a huge list over at Mozilla of all these properties, fonts, and so many. Okay, all the different things, background color, etc., etc. So if we take a look at, say, font family, okay, so we can go over that to the font family, look it up in the reference. Okay, explains all these things, how they work. At the very bottom, it's in here somewhere. Formal definition. Initial value depends on, applies to, inherited, yes. Okay, so if you sent a font family on a parent, that font family will be inherited by the child unless it's overruled by a style sheet. Let's look at another one of these. Margin. Okay. If you want to look up margin, you'll see it applies to blah, 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 blah. It's inherited. No. Why? Because it doesn't make as much sense for a child to have the same margin as a parent, so they don't set it. Okay? So, cascading style sheets, which the cascade tells you what rules apply. Now, why is it from top to bottom in source order? Style sheets added after other style sheets will have more precedence. What does this mean if you're using a framework, a CSS framework, and you just want to tweak that framework a bit? You start off with your style sheets, and then, I just got it backwards. Let's go to my site and we'll show you. Okay, networking.com. We're going to go take a look. We'll go to the head. Now, what do we see here? Meta, initial, blah, 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 blah. Link. We can see right here I'm using Bootstrap styling. It comes with a huge set of styles to make everything look nice. When I want to customize things, I want my styles to override theirs. What I do is make sure my styles come after theirs, so source ordering for things with the same specificity apply. Okay, so I have a small set of rules, much smaller, okay, and I just use that to override or enhance the styling that I got from a framework. Okay, very common. So that's why you don't even have to customize a framework. You don't have to get your hands in their code necessarily. You just add your own enhancements after theirs and just make sure the specificity is as specific as any of their rules. Okay, so that's how you get a lot of mileage out of other people's CSS frameworks without even having to know how all their stuff works, and you don't even have to be able to edit it. You just have to be able to get your selectors specific enough. Okay, the cascade, super important from both a styling point of view and a GUI programming point of view. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.